All right, we've got Gregory Duggery. Now, he's that retired Dallas police officer. We've had him, he's on the stand right after the cell phone expert on the stand. I'm so pleased to have with me for the next hour and a half Michel Bryant. He is a Law&Crime trial analyst. I'm so happy to have you here again with me. And I've got you here locked in the studio with me for another hour and a half to analyze everything. So now we have him, this officer, talking about a cell phone dump. That's the way of categorizing this. And before this, we had a cell phone expert. How important is this in analyzing a case like this?
You know, it's really becoming the new DNA. You know, if you think back to the last few cases, the Jessica Chambers case, the Moorer case, it's all about the, pinpointing where people are via cell phone data. So they dump the data from the phone, and then they grid that information to theoretically, I'm not sold on this yet, by the way, to theoretically place people where they were at a given time, making phone calls, texts, receiving them, so you can draw conclusions as to where people were when a crime was committed. Again, it's new science, and I don't think it's perfect.
So if, for example, in this case, Love were to say, no, I have an alibi, I wasn't there where you thought I was, killing her, shooting her, because this was a shooting case. I wasn't shooting her at the time that the prosecutor put me there. I was, with my alibi witness, I was sleeping, or I was doing something else. The prosecution has him pinged with a cell phone or a text or something like that. That then puts him there, that science puts him there, that's what these experts are on there for. You don't necessarily believe that science?
I have two problems with it. First of all, it may put the phone there.
That's true.
So that's the first thing you got to overcome. And then I've seen cell phone experts that contradict the prosecution experts by saying that it's not that exact. The science is not that accurate. Maybe it's within a quarter of a mile. It depends on how many towers, how many cross points, how they can coordinate all of that information to come up with a true, accurate position.
Okay, that's very interesting, Michael. What I know is something that is accurate is that we have to go accurately to a break, which we will do right now, and we'll be right back after this break. Stay with us. All right. Now, look, we've got another officer on the stand, Jeffrey Abir. He's with the Dallas Police Department as well. And he is also, you're going to hear in just a second, he is also a cell phone expert, or going to be talking about cell phones, about cell phone dumping. You're going to be asking yourself, why all this stuff about cell phones? And Michel Bryant has talked about it as well as I have. It's because I think they really have to put their case on, the prosecution does, about placing Love where they think that where they want him to be when they did the shooting, when they allegedly did the shooting, when they want to show they did the shooting. Because they've got Crystal, the person who says, I hired him, he was my hitman, he did the thing. But did Crystal get a deal? She probably got a deal from the prosecution. So, that from the jury's point of perspective, that may taint her a little bit, says the prosecution to themselves. So they need to bolster their case. And how do they do that? They bolster it with science. And this is science. Cell phones don't lie. They can say to the jury, cell phones don't lie, like Crystal. She's got something to do with it. Okay, so that's my theory of why they're putting so much of this cell phone evidence. Let's listen in now. Oh, by the way, when you see how it's kind of a little bit smudged there, that's because our stalwart photographer there that's on the scene giving you this live video images, well, they're taking it actually through the media room because the judge says, look, I don't want any media actually in the courtroom. So they're taking it through the glass. That's why it looks a little bit blurry. But boy, they're doing a great job, aren't they? Let's listen in. All right, so we've got the witness, Michael. We've got the witness on the stand. This is now, we're talking about the cell phone dumps. This is Jeffrey Abir. He's a Dallas Police Department officer. He's extracting data. He's searching through Brenda Delgado's phone, Crystal Cortiga's Android cell phone. So it's sort of tedious. But again, he's trying to get these text messages, trying to get the messages not just from Love's phone, but from the cohort's phones.
Sure, anything coming or going from that device,
right,
even if deleted, is going to be in there.
Right. And why is that so important?
Well, again, we're trying to find out where people were at what time. It also can sometimes lend credibility to motives and plans. Exactly. It really depends on what's being said and when. Both very important.
Right, and to the conspiracy overall, right?
Of course.
Because it shows that the planning, as you said, the word planning, so that Crystal was planning all of this, putting it together, Now, we think that the motive was pretty simple in this case. You know, drugs and money.
That was the payment, apparently.
Yeah.
For the hit. Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't anything more complicated than that. But the phone calls and the timing of the phone calls, which there's now going through this extraction method, would be able to show us that this is, you know, at least showing that this is being set up.
Some of the pieces they've got to put together. They've got to paint the picture, and this helps do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in a case like this where you don't have an eyewitness, because you see, apparently we're going to be shown that through the openings that we know, that you see the Jeep going in, but you don't see actually, you know, unfortunately, what happened. We don't see the actual shooting.
Right.
So we have to rely on this. All right, let's go back to court here. And, well, the witness is coming off the stand. So that was Officer Jeffrey Abir, Dallas Police Department. No cross-examination for him. Both of these witnesses, neither of these witnesses have been cross-examined. And now we're going, which is kind of interesting, neither of the witnesses were cross-examined, which is interesting to me, Michael. Neither of the officers were cross-examined when they gave the information about, neither of these were actual experts. These were detectives.
Yeah, these are like custodians of
records
back in the good old days.
Right.
Here are the reports.
Right.
I wrote them. I prepared the contemporaneous with my observations.
Right.
This is similar to that. These guys aren't rendering opinions per se. So
there's really nothing to cross-examine.
Exactly.
So if our viewers are wondering, well, why wasn't there a vigorous cross-examination? There's really nothing to cross-examine them about. They're not making an opinion about the records per se. But now that the prosecution has all these cell phones in and messages into the into evidence, now the prosecution can use all of those to have blow-ups, to put them together,
closing
arguments,
yes.
And the things that they promised in opening, they can now help put together with the use of the cell phones. And again, as I was starting to say just a moment ago, we don't have an eyewitness here. We see the Jeep going in. And then we don't have an actual eyewitness to the shooting.
Right. We have an ear witness.
An ear witness.
And we have a guy who saw the Jeep.
Right.
But yeah, again, these are all pieces. You know, this is all circumstantial evidence of the actual crime, things that led up to or were contemporaneous with the crime, but not I saw him do it. Right.
Okay. So they're having their afternoon break right now, and while they have their afternoon break, you and I have been following another case, the Moorer case. And so I want to talk to you about that case, which had a very exciting conclusion, which we will talk about, you and I, and with everybody else, in just a few moments after we come back from this break. Stay with us. I promise you this is going to be exciting. All right, I know all of you have been transfixed with the Tammy Moorer case out of South Carolina. I know that I have been, and Michael Bryant has been. Michael, right?
I
mean, we've been watching this case, and my background is as a prosecutor, and you know, I really thought the prosecutor had a rough going on this Tammy Bryant case. I thought the case was obviously circumstantial, though I always say all prosecution cases are, not all, most prosecution cases that go to trial are circumstantial. Because, frankly, if I got saw somebody shooting somebody and says, I saw him shoot her, and there he is standing right there, and here, let me just draw him to the police station, and here you go and have him, then usually they kind of don't end up going to trial.
Yeah, if the direct evidence is credible, then it's not. But if it's flaky, because witnesses are flaky, then maybe you do go to trial with direct evidence. But it's rare.
But generally not. Generally, they go to trial with circumstantial evidence cases. So that didn't bother me. But the circumstantial evidence evidence in this case was a little flaky. Then she took the stand.
Oh my.
Oh my. So after she took the stand, I thought, oh my, my. And as you all know, the verdict came back, and well, let's listen in. Wow. Well. That's quite surprised. Were you surprised?
No, I really wasn't. I wasn't
You
surprised.
weren't?
I was
Okay,
not. No.
okay.
You know, first of all, I was supposed to be here during her direct testimony last week talking about it,
Right.
but my mom wouldn't let me come in. It was,
because
a
of
little
the bad
much,
words.
yes.
Yeah.
So
your mom
they
said, no,
you're
Michael,
you're not old enough for
those
that.
curse words.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, I
So,
understand. My
now-
mom wouldn't either.
See, so I really believe, though. I mean, we've talked before about jury nullification.
Yes.
That's generally something the defense will pull
Yes.
to kind of create the passion over facts
Yes.
in the minds of the jurors. They get so sympathetic. They find some other reason, God and country, whatever it may be,
Right.
to acquit the defendant. Today, we saw reversed jury nullification. I think this woman would have skated, or at least had a hung jury like her husband
Right.
Sidney did in his trial,
Yes.
until she took the stand. Now, as an attorney, we help the judge craft instructions, jury instructions. I think the instruction they got in this case was, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you find there's not enough evidence to convict Ms. Moorer, but you just hate her, you despise her, she annoys you, feel free to find her guilty. That's the kind of instruction I feel like they got in this case,
boy.
because she was so unsympathetic, arrogant, cocky,
Right.
and condescending.
She really was. She was horrible to the jury.
She was.
She was to blame everybody. It wasn't, and
She was very unlikable.
very unlikable.
And that's wrong.
And unbelievable.
If you're ever on a jury, do not vote that way. I'm not telling you to vote that way, but she was so unlikable that I think it made them feel less guilty, depending on whatever the evidence showed.
Right. All right. How unlikable was she? Let's go to sentencing. 30 years, Michael.
30 years. I get the feeling as she's listening to that, she's nodding along. I think she's saying, oh, yeah, well, let's see about that. Let's see if this sticks. Let's see what happens on appeal. I just think she's that kind of person. She's part sociopath and part just arrogant.
Right.
You know?
Right. But if this is, if she did this and the jury found that she did, 30 years for that horrible act.
Well, I think, a lot of this is about what most people think happened, and that is
Right.
that they killed this young girl.
Yes.
The evidence doesn't exist yet. Remember,
Yet.
there is no statute of limitations on the
Right.
murder, so if
And we
Sidney
don't
and
have a
Tammy
body. Right.
are linked to the body once it's found, if it's found, then that could be the second round for these folks. I still think that the jury and the judge, to some degree, knows the bigger picture, even though it's not officially part of the record, it's not in this trial. But how do they get to, to me, you're right, the case was flimsy, especially conspiracy. Where's the agreement? They have to infer agreement from all the bits and pieces. It's so difficult to get there.
But
she helped them.
She helped them,
Yeah.
yes. And 30 years, this woman is gone
Yeah.
since all of those years ago. And she's got a family, as we'll hear from. Let's listen in. Well, I don't think she's taking responsibility there. I don't
Not
think she's going to
contrite
get
enough for you?
credit there, Michael.
Nope.
No. Let's take a minute to hear from the victim's father. That was Harry Elvis, the father of the victim, Heather Elvis, Michael, in this case.
Yeah, the hell is not over for that family,
Never will
if it
be.
ever will be. No closure, really, either. This is just one little bit of a puzzle,
Right.
So not very satisfying for
Right. And really no satisfaction in the trial of her husband.
No. That retrial,
that retrial.
probably will go better, but I bet you he doesn't testify, just like he didn't testify the last time.
Right, if they sees what happened with her.
Yeah.
Now, maybe, because of this trial, maybe there's a better chance that a deal will happen.
I think
Yeah.
you're probably right.
All right. So much excitement here happening at Law&Crime. Stay with us on the other side of the top of this hour, and we will be back with more live crime, the Kristopher Love case, and others. Welcome to another hour of Law&Crime. Let's go to our top crimes for the hour. Wow, such a sad case. Such a sad case. Let's go back, though, to Texas. In the Kristopher Love case, we've got Dallas police officer Michael Freeman on the stand. We now have the third police officer on the stand talking about cell phone records, cell phone dumps, and extraction, Michael, of those cell phone records. What do you make of this? We've talked about how important this is to be able to place Kristopher Love at the certain time and certain place when the murder happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt the prosecution thinks it's critical stuff to put this many witnesses on.
Right.
And this Cellbrite, this is a software we've heard a lot about, is this special extraction software that brings back to life dead texts, whatever else you tried to kill out of your phone.
Dead text.
This thing, this thing will resurrect it.
Right.
Yes.
So when you think you've deleted a text, it's never gone. You can never get rid of that thing.
That is correct.
Right. And so, and in fact, in a case like this, when Love or Crystal, the person he was conspiring with, according to prosecution, would try to go back, I would assume, and try to delete something, wouldn't the prosecution then be able to argue consciousness of guilt? I mean,
sure,
that you went back and tried to delete something. Wouldn't that be actually worse for you if you tried to, if you do something?
Not something you think about in the heat of the moment when, you're trying to cover your tracks. No.
But that's just it. You're trying to cover your tracks. Let's go back to court and listen in live. Michael, let's talk something about that picture of the victim right there.
I don't like it. I mean, it's a lovely picture.
A lovely picture. You don't mean it that way.
No,
lovely picture, but why don't you like it?
If I'm the defense attorney, I don't want that beautiful victim's face staring out at the jury all day.
Of course not.
And now it's on TV for everybody else. The sympathy factor is
huge.
I think it's prejudicial. And if the defense were to object to that, I'm confident the judge would have them just kind of put it away.
But the fact that they didn't object to it, though, that means that has not been recorded for appeal, which means it's not an appellate issue.
Well, yeah, we don't know if they objected to it.
I'm going, making many chess plays down the road.
Yes. No, I think it's prejudicial. Is it reversible error? I don't know about that. But A, did they object to it? B, what did the judge say? But the fact that it's sitting there just bugs me.
Right. Now, wouldn't I, as a prosecutor, they'll be able to make the argument, hey, judge, I got that in. Look at these beautiful pictures. I got that picture into evidence by the prosecutor. That picture is in. Once that picture is in, just like the cell phone records, and we were saying we get to use those for closing, we get to use those for everything. Once that picture is in, once that evidence is in, I can use that any old way I want.
No, wrong.
Okay,
no.
Why not? Why not?
It can't be overly prejudicial. Once it's in evidence, great. The jury can have it and do whatever they want with it back in the jury room. But can you imagine if you put up every single exhibit that you got into evidence?
The bloody glove,
bloody torso.
The bloody torso.
It's out of control.
Right.
This looks like a beautiful picture. How can anybody object to it? But the impact of that on the jury is noticeable.
I mean, it really, look, from the prosecution point of view, again, I love it because it's her smiling at you saying, convict, convict, convict. I'm smiling from the grave saying, convict this horrible person for me. I'm telling you, beseeching you from the grave to do so. But if you're the defense, you're saying exactly the opposite.
And I think on a level playing field, it really shouldn't be there. That's just, I don't care, prosecution or defense. I don't think it should be there.
I kind of agree with you. But let's see. I think it really depends whether it's an issue for appeal on whether they did object. Let's go back to court and listen up to what's actually going on in the courtroom. Now, we understand, Michael, that there are 3 officers because there are 3 different phones and also 3 different carriers.
Right, and some of those are better than others. So
right, exactly. So, and I would think that there may be even some pushback about some of the service issues and all of that. And so, as you even said, some of the science is better on the phones and others. So, but that's why, folks, there have been 3 different officers, 3 different phones, 3 different carriers. So that's why we have to go through this kind of laborious extraction of the cell phone and the records and the numbers because there are just so many different cell phones involved and text messages and all of that, and 3 actual different carriers for those cell phones. That's why it's taking the time that the prosecution is going through all of this in the Love case today to make sure that they get all of this in the case. And we've been talking about the photo of the victim here as well. That apparently happens in Texas. That is not an unusual thing. We've got to go to break now. We'll be right back with the Love case on the other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, we're going to go right back to Texas in the Kristopher Love case. Listen in. All right, now this gets very interesting. Google searches.
You know, we don't think quite often as the phone's the computer now. You know,
Right.
you don't have to get somebody's computer from their home and search.
Nope.
You just search the phone. It does everything. Google
these
searches
Google
about
searches,
parking
right.
lot murders, ex-girlfriend hiring somebody. I mean, yeah.
The affidavit.
I'm
that
sure
was,
it's just random
written.
curiosity on the part
Michael,
of Kristopher Love.
Of course, that's what
You wake up in the morning, you just start going
just go
through
the Dallas
random
Register, the
murder
crime
stories.
Register, the affidavits.
Of course.
That are,
Don't be so suspicious.
don't be so cynical, Michael.
He's probably got a perfectly good excuse for this. I'm sure it doesn't look good, but I'm sure there's going to be some explanation. He lives in the area. He's very curious about things like this happening. He was checking it out.
Again and again and again.
Yes.
And even going so far as to look up the affidavits written by somebody who said, that they were pled guilty.
I know. I'm sure it wasn't because they might finger him, but,
oh, no. It couldn't be that.
He's very thorough.
He's very thorough in his investigation for something that he's not involved in.
Yes.
Oh, my. Michael, you're so suspicious. I can't believe it. You're so naive. Oh, this is just disintegrating over here. I think we better go to break. We'll be right back while I talk some sense into Michael Bryant. I like those new bumpers that we have for Law&Crime. Those are those bumper things that are called, those little things that go for 5 seconds. I don't like those. Those are great Law&Crime people. Those are really good you did those. Anyway, let's go back to Texas and the Kristopher Love case.
Yes.
Okay. It has been so interesting this afternoon in this Kristopher Love case, seeing these experts and these custodial experts, really, not so much experts in exactly the cell phone records, but the custodian of the records, handing him these cell phones. And what was tedious in the first little bit has now become so interesting because of what Mr. Love was Googling, the records he was looking at. The Dallas records of crime, the crime records, what he was trying to, the case. I mean, it's just fascinating. He is really sort of being his own worst witness here by his own records on his phone. Let's go back to court and see what is happening next. Okay, so now, Michael, what they're going over is the timeline from Crystal's phone. How many times is she calling? How many calls? Who's it going back and forth? So this is really connecting Krystal and Love together. Right. That connection,
right?
Going
because
back
she
and
was.
Forth. She was sort of putting this together.
And she delivered him to the crime scene,
exactly,
allegedly, and she hung out while he committed the crime and then drove him away.
Right.
The prosecution's case, anyway.
Right, and she's admitted to all this.
Yes,
so,
and I can't wait to see her testify to that.
Right. Yes, exactly. So these are images from Krystal's phone on September, and we're a little bit unclear, and this witness so far has been a little bit unclear on that. When that's happened, then we have U.S. currency in the shape of a heart, and so back and forth on this. Let's go back to court now with this witness as the prosecution is giving back and forth with him. Folks, this is how the story is told, through cell phones, through messages, through connecting all these dots between all the co-defendants in this case to make the case for the prosecution that Love was where the prosecution says he was, and connecting all these cell phones together. This is how the prosecution is putting their case together, and it's getting pretty darn exciting. So stick with us on the other side of the break. We'll be right back on more in Texas in the Kristopher Love case. Okay, we're going to go back to Texas in the Kristopher Love case. Before we go back live, we're going to actually listen to the victim's mother in this case. You can't really imagine anything more, Michael Bryant, you can't really imagine anything more tragic than that. But I want to, do that. I think it lends, just a little bit more humanity. We've been listening for the last hour and a half, a little bit more than that, to cell phone experts. And it's very important to the prosecution's case. But let's listen and I think give more humanity, as I say, to the trial, to the victim's mother here for a moment.
Painful, really. Difficult.
As a mother of two, I can barely, honestly, folks, I can barely watch that. Michael, I don't know about you, but I can barely watch that.
Yeah, and obviously critical, important
Yes.
for the jury to see the impact
Yes.
of the crime alleged by the prosecution. But yeah, if you're human, that's difficult to watch.
That's difficult to watch. Okay, let's go to hear from the boyfriend of Kendra's boyfriend, Ricardo. Let's get his testimony. Is she still alive? And then he has to hear from the person, the doorman, essentially. No, she passed, and that's her boyfriend. And you can just see the pain that he's in when he's testifying. Michael.
Yeah, and then he hears more about how she passed,
Right.
which it doesn't get better.
No,
Yeah.
she's shot to death.
Yeah.
And the mother before that, we heard that testimony. It's just heartbreaking. Let's go back to court. Now we're in live testimony, more from cell phone experts, and actually not cell phone expert. This is a Dallas police officer, but he's talking about cell phone and cell phone interaction. Let's listen in.
This is a
Fascinating day here in the Kristopher Love case in Texas, everybody. We've got to wrap it up in here in a few minutes with my friend Michael Bryant, but I want to hit a couple of points. First of all, I think we were all kind of, surprised that this is a death penalty case.
Yeah.
Now, one of his cohorts, allegedly in the scheme, has already pled guilty. Why is Kristopher Love sort of sitting out there and not having pled? This, it's a death penalty case.
Yeah, and he's got nothing to lose. He's the trigger man, allegedly, and he's less likely to get a deal. And so now you have Crystal Cortez already rolling over on him.
Right.
She's gotten the deal. She's going to live. There's no reason to give him a deal. So from his perspective, what's he got to lose? Go to trial.
Right. And as we saw that very emotional testimony from the mother, I mean, I just choked up, and it was just so hard. And the boyfriend. We've got really emotional stuff, and we've got the guy that all of the players in this alleged conspiracy, even though it's not charged as a conspiracy, he's the worst in the wrong. He's the shooter.
Have some money, go kill this person. And he apparently was like, okay,
I'll do it.
Wash your car, mow your lawn, kill your friend. Okay, yeah,
I'll do it.
No big deal.
Right. So he's the worst of the worst, death penalty. That's why he's there. Okay. The Google search. All right. Everything was kind of going along, and we were sort of humdrum today and this afternoon, and blah, blah, blah. Then Google search. Michael and I went, whoa, the Google search. Tell us about the Google search. Why was that so important?
Either this guy has a very morbid curiosity and just searches out info about crimes, and I was a little sarcastic earlier. Clearly, it's a consciousness of guilt
Consciousness
situation.
of guilt. Boy, that'll get you every time, folks. Consciousness of guilt. Michael Bryant, thank you so much for being with us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you
so much, everybody. Till next time, thank you so much for being with us in Law and Crime.